Kia ora, good evening. Economic growth in Southland rose 1.5% in 2012. All 14 regions saw a lift in economic activity in the last quarter of the year, according to the ANZ New Zealand Regional Trends Report. While it did see growth, Southland had the third smallest quarterly increase at 1.5%. For the year ended December, the region saw a lift in house sales, improved business confidence and a rise in dwelling approvals. However, the report says retail sales, consumer confidence and employment fell. Plain packaging is to be brought in for cigarettes, with government announcing it will introduce legislation before the end of the year. Larger health warnings will be on cigarette packs and tobacco pouches as they are stripped of marketing and branding. Colours and packaging designs will be standardised to maximise the impact of health warnings in a bid to reduce smoking, according to Associate Health Minister Tariana Turia. The legislation for plain packaging comes after retailers were forced to hide tobacco products from view last year. Ms Turia says the plain packaging is considered another major step toward New Zealand becoming smoke-free by 2025. A 62-year-old contractor died at Diamond Peak near Gore last night in an incident involving farm machinery. It's thought George Lewis Williams lost control and was thrown from the cab of the tractor and trailer unit he was operating in steep terrain. The machinery was found at the bottom of a gully. Emergency services attended the scene just before 8 p.m. The Department of Labour has taken over investigations and is speaking to possible witnesses. The matter is being referred to the coroner. 12 people perished at sea in the south last year with a rash of boating incidents in the Southland region. Southland Police Area Commander Inspector Lane Todd says the incidents have a devastating effect on families and the community, and it's also difficult for emergency services. He says the spate of problems in 2012 is a worry.
It's a major concern for us. Obviously, as I said before, there's the emotional toll that it takes on staff, but also the wider community. But there's also the amount of time that it takes to actually run these operations is quite significant, and we do rely heavily on volunteers. And obviously with the ones in Favo Strait, we've got people like the fishing community, the fishing boat community. They're always willingly offering their time on their vessels, so it does have quite a large impact on those operations.
Was there a common theme among the incidents that we had last year?
Well, I guess these matters are still before the coroner, so I don't really want to get into too many specifics with it. But there are some common themes there, and we've certainly be highlighting those with the coroner. But it's probably a little bit early for me to publicly talk about that at this stage.
Are there some messages or lessons for the public, do you think?
Well, I mean, we always push, obviously, utilising safety. Safety's got to be priority. And when I say safety, that's obviously weather conditions, ensuring that you've got enough safety equipment on the vessel itself. That people are competent that are actually skipping those vessels, and utilising things like the local radio, the marine bluff radio down there is obviously a very good resource, and some people use it, some people don't, but we always encourage people to do that. Mary Lease runs a very good operation down there, so that's the sort of thing that we would really be encouraging.
How unusual would it be for us to see so many incidents in such a short time?
Well, if we're just talking about Favo Strait, there was quite a large number in the last 12 months, and that we would normally probably on average have one significant one a year, but obviously 3 was quite significant for us. But then also coupled with that, we always have a high number of search and rescues around the Milford and Te Anau area, and we are in Southland, we're in the top 3 in the country with the number of search and rescue operations we have. So, yeah, I mean, we certainly did get hit quite hard with having 3 significant ones last year.
From the police point of view, will you be targeting boating as an issue, doing an education campaign, anything like that?
We've certainly, in regards to the Muttonbird Islands, for example, we've been trying to do some prevention work there with our area liaison officer and myself with local area leaders. And that's something we'll still be encouraging as we go to the next season. And that's just looking at again around those safety aspects when they're actually transporting people down there. So that's one we have been significantly working on. But we're constantly working with people like Coast Guard and just in trying to encourage people to actually go and do the skipper training courses and other training issues like that. So that's something that we're always constantly working on.
After the break, more firefighters are sent to Australia to help fight bushfires. Welcome back. The Southern Institute of Technology is around a third the way through earthquake upgrades of buildings at its Invercargill campus. Chief Executive Penny Simmons says work has been underway for the past year to improve earthquake strengthening.
Obviously, anything that we're building at the moment, we're building or upgrading, we're having to strengthen as we go, but we're also getting a survey done of our buildings and the state they're in and what work's going to need to be done on them. So we're sort of at different phases for different things. New, obviously, is being built to a higher standard. Redevelopment, we're bringing up to code, and then looking at our existing stock of building and seeing what has to be done.
When do you think you'll know what work is required on those existing buildings?
Well, it's been phased, so we've done 4 or 5 buildings to date, and we've got another group of buildings coming through in the next few months. So it's just being phased as we can get engineers to do the work for us and write the reports for us.
What type of work has been required to this point?
Well, strengthening, obviously, bracing and wrapping and things like that. So it's all doable at this point, but we may get to a stage where we find a building, it isn't cost effective and it may have to just be taken down. We haven't come to that yet, but if it does, we'll have to make a decision then.
Now, in terms of the buildings that you're going through and assessing, are you doing it in an order of priority or?
Yes, we are. We're targeting the ones that we think might be most vulnerable, that we need to know about first, and then finding out about them and working on them.
Costs-wise, what kind of price tag are you looking at in terms of an overall upgrade, do you think?
Oh goodness, it's difficult to put an overall cost on it because, as I say, some may be so costly that we decide to exit them instead. At this stage, we're just tacking it on to the budgets of each redevelopment, so it hasn't become its own project. It's just been tacked on to buildings as we redevelop them. But with the next phase of buildings, the next grouping of buildings, we weren't targeting them for redevelopment, so it will have to have its own budget attached to strengthening.
In terms of the work that has happened so far, have you been surprised at all as to the amount of work that was needed?
Surprised positively, actually. Surprised at the standard of the buildings that we've got. So a lot of the buildings were built to a very high specification, higher than perhaps was required at the time. So buildings that I thought we might have had issues with, we haven't had. So pleasantly surprised at this stage at the little amount of work we've had to do, rather than the opposite of sort of being devastated by how much there is to do.
Southland's birth rate has fallen to its lowest level in 6 years, according to figures released today. In Southland, the birth rate fell more than 6.5% from 2011 to 12, with 1,245 births recorded in the region last year, according to figures from Statistics New Zealand. Nationally, the birth rate also fell, with more than 61,000 births in 2012, down almost 0.4% on 2011. Meanwhile, close to 30,100 deaths were registered last year, resulting in a natural population increase of more than 31,000. A second Southern fire crew left Invercargill today, bound for Australia to help fight bushfires in Victoria. The 5 Southern rural firefighters were being sent to Eastern Victoria, part of a New Zealand contingent of 22. It's the second group in less than a week that will be helping fight fires in the area, with 5 Southern rural firefighters having been deployed last Thursday. They've been sent at the request of the Australian Government. The team is being led by crew leader Nelson Eade, who has some idea of what to expect.
From experience, it'll be probably mainly working in big timber, forestry. It's quite mountainous, I understand, and steep the terrain we're going into. So it'll be more, I would imagine, containment of fire lines and possibly building new containment lines depending on how vigorous the fires are at the time.
How important is this work?
Well, it's sort of 2 aspects from our point of view. Great to be able to go over and help the Australians, give them some time out and some breaks to rest, because they've been doing this for months basically, and also giving us the experience working in different situations, and these sort of fires we don't strike here in New Zealand, so it's great experience for us to be able to work in those conditions.
How challenging will it be for you guys to actually be fighting these kinds of fires?
Very challenging. As I said, we don't usually strike these kind of conditions in New Zealand, so it's completely foreign, I suppose, from our point of view. Very steep terrain usually, some extremely big trees, gum trees and that have been there for years, and very hot, as you can imagine. So conditions are quite foreign for us to be going in there. So yeah, it's a challenge.
So what made you put your hand up to go over there and help out?
Been involved, as are all the guys in the crew, with rural fire for quite a few years, and it's a great experience, and it's an opportunity that doesn't come around that often, although Australia seems to burn fairly regularly.
South City residents are backing plans to revamp the area, according to those behind the proposal. Redevelopment plans were revealed last year, and South Alive spokesperson Jeanette Malcolm says the group and community are happy with the concepts, which include greening up Ellis Road, street beautification and pocket parks. Some work is underway, with leased land being landscaped for community gardens, a stage and basketball area. A budget's included in Invercargill City's draft annual plan. The cost of the project is not known, but will go out for public submission. Coming up in sport, post-match reaction following the Highlanders' final pre-season warm-up match against the Blues in Queenstown. That's after the weather next. From the news team, good night.